So thanks to those three very talented musicians and to the very talented musician who is sitting on the front row who led our littles this morning. All are regular members of our choir, and the choir will be back in worship after the Labor Day holiday. And if you want to sing with all these amazing people, John is standing at this very moment to wave at you and say, we would love to have you sing in the choir. And they start choir practice soon. Yes? They meet on Wednesday nights. Speaking of very talented musicians, I am not one. But I want to talk this morning about a very talented musician named Lin-Manuel Miranda. Anybody know him? I mean, not like personally. I mean, you might know. I mean, some of you guys might actually know him. He is the writer and creator and star of a hit Broadway musical, a little show that won a few awards called Hamilton. Hamilton will be coming to Kansas City next summer, and apparently some of you are putting second mortgages on your homes to get tickets. Last Sunday, I don't know, like 20 or so preachers across the country participated in the Gospel According to Hamilton Sunday. And it was curated by a friend of ours, one of our LA kids, named Stephanie Kendall, who's currently the executive minister at Park Avenue Christian Church in New York City. And Stephanie asked me months ago to participate, and she says, you got one of the first picks, pick whichever song you want. Okay, well, if you know the Hamilton soundtrack, that was overwhelming for me. And I love them all, and I couldn't choose, and so I stupidly and arrogantly said to her, just whichever one nobody else will take, I'll take that one. And now it's here. And about 3 weeks ago, when she sent me the song that she wanted me to preach on, I thought, on Blessing of the Backpack Sunday. On Back to School Sunday, she wants me to preach on 10 dual commandments. 10 dual commandments. That's as much as we can do because Lin-Manuel has all kinds of rights on that. 10 dual commandments. Like the duel, like with guns and 10 paces, and you know what I'm talking about, right? Right. So, Hamilton. So, you're thinking duels. Okay, Steitz, nobody participates in those anymore. How is that relevant? Well, first of all, that's not exactly true, because as Ryan alluded to in his prayer, in the first 5 days of August, there were more than 6 homicides by gun violence in this city, many of them not far from where you sit right now. People still resort to violence in America, particularly gun violence, but all kinds of violence, really. If we don't resort to gun violence, we sure seem to fall quickly into resorting to the violence of hatefulness and ugliness and snippiness, and this morning I want to include in that list rightness. And I start thinking about this song, and some of you don't know the song, but Ryan's going to help us with that in a minute. This song, 10 Dual Commandments, is basically 7 rules, 7 steps to follow in the process of a duel. But ultimately, it's about negotiation and mediation and how to be in relationship with people even when it's hard and even when there is disagreement and even perhaps when you don't want to stay in relationships, like all these teachers trying to navigate a classroom or a playground or full of people, and all of these littles trying to find their way through the lunchroom successfully. And like all of us, because that's life. And it's especially disturbing to think that we can't quite get this right, this negotiation and mediation and conflict resolution, because, if you had the TV on in the last month and you live in Missouri or Kansas, Lord of mercy. Why are they still on my television? Why are the political ads still on my television? It was over on Tuesday. They're still on my television, and I got a mailer yesterday. Please make them stop coming. That's not partisan. That's just the stuff in my mailbox. Lord of mercy. It's apparently, if our littles, right? There's a line in Hamilton early on that says you've got to be carefully taught. Now, some of you are singing that from Hamilton, and some of you are singing that from like My Fair Lady. South Pacific, thank you to the music people in the front row. Whatever it is, right? You have to be carefully taught. What are we teaching? What are we teaching? What are we teaching about how to disagree in healthy ways? The problem is, and you'll understand as Reverend Motter comes to help us learn the lines of 10 dual commandments, both for us and for the two guys singing this song in the musical, we don't know when to quit.
This might come as a shock to you, but I've never rapped in church before.
This well could be the last time as well. This could get us all fired or something, I don't know.
Shanna couldn't find a whiter person to do this. Number 1, the challenge, demand satisfaction. If they apologize, no need for further action. Number 2, if they don't, grab a friend. That's your second, your lieutenant, when there's reckoning to be reckoned. Number 3, have your seconds meet face to face. Negotiate a peace or negotiate a time and place.
Negotiate a time and place? Like for the duel? Is that what that means? Like that's the third commandment? We're 3 verses in, and we're already picking a place for the duel? Shouldn't we wait for that till 7 or 8 or something? I mean, these first 3 commandments, pretty simple, pretty straightforward with these 3 little rules. The first one, did you catch what that was? Apologize. And then accept the apology. Saying I'm sorry doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you foolish. It doesn't make you all kinds of things. It makes you human. And accepting the other person's apology, that's good too. But the one I think is most important here is always have a wing woman or a wingman, whichever. You got to have a wingman, friends. You got to have a wingman. And sometimes you send that wingman out because, well, some of you are hotheads. And you need this wingman to kind of settle things down for you a little bit, and maybe so that you can negotiate peace. That was what he said first. Negotiate peace. Go on.
Number 4, if they don't reach a peace, that's all right. Time to get some pistols and a doctor on site. You pay him in advance, you treat him with civility, you have him turn around so he can have deniability. 5, duel before the sun is in the sky. Pick a place to die where it's high and dry.
Stop. I can't take it anymore. That's only 5. And there are 10. And this little song is only number 15 in the 437 of the Hamilton soundtrack. I don't know how many there are. Enough that it took Audrey a month to sing them all over and over and over and over. We only got to 5. It seems to me that these 3 commandments, there are 3 commandments for conflict resolution and 7 for how to destroy one another. The balance just seems off to me, but maybe that's just me. Our problem, it seems, when we follow these rules is that maybe we don't know when to quit. And maybe some of us would rather be right than be loving. That's what all those mailers in your mailbox are about, or at least the one that seems in mine. They're more interested in being right. And unfortunately, we may no longer engage in gun battles, but too often we are concerned in being right over being loving, and we end up in this conflict. I was in a Facebook conversation this week, and I was right. It was a Facebook conversation about Scripture. And I was right. And I got myself all worked up, tangled up from last week, right, Bill? I got myself all worked up that I was going to be right. And then I thought to myself, you're going to ruin this relationship if you're not careful in your efforts to be right, in your need to win. You ready to damage this relationship in that way? Because that's the road you're going down, sister. And so I had this song in my head, 10 dual commandments. Maybe I was thinking about, I let it go. Because I wasn't ready to ruin that relationship just yet. I asked myself, is this going to be worth it? To win? To be right? I read over the summer, a little light summer reading, I read the autobiography of Eleanor Roosevelt. It's fantastic, and you should read it. So I went back, and I've been rewatching the Ken Burns documentary about the Roosevelts. You know the one? You can get it on Netflix. I was watching about Teddy. You know, Teddy serves 2 terms as president. And then who follows him? Taft. Taft is his best friend. His very best friend. And Teddy, after he leaves office, decides that his very best friend isn't doing a good enough job. He's not doing it right. And so Teddy decides, in his infinite wisdom, he's going to run for a 3rd term. And he ran a total smear campaign. He ran a scorched earth campaign. We wouldn't know anything about those. But he did. He ran one, and it caused terrible, terrible conflict between he and his friend, President Taft. And it was very hurtful to Taft, says Ken Burns. Very hurtful to Taft. So hurtful that he could hardly get out and campaign. Teddy ran as a third-party candidate. You know who became the president? Come on. Thank you. Woodrow Wilson became the next president of the United States. Not Teddy Roosevelt. Not Taft. Was it worth it? To be right? A broken, ruined relationship. A broken, ruined presidency or candidacy. How easy is it to be right? What do you know about Aaron Burr? Probably what you know is if you know any of the lines from Hamilton, Burr says, "I'm the damn fool who shot him." You may not know anything else about Aaron Burr. Most people don't, but they know that he's the one who shot Alexander Hamilton. Was it worth it? To be right? Jesus has something to say about this, of course. It seems Jesus' whole ministry was about this. Time and time again, Jesus is standing up for being loving over being right. The religious establishment is trying to make sure the rules are followed and people end up with broken relationships with God and with themselves and with one another. And time and again, Jesus seems to ask the people, is it worth it to be right? I cut off Reverend Motter too soon, a little bit ago. Because if we let him rap along, he would get to verse 8, which says this.
Your last chance to negotiate. Send in your second, see if they can set the record straight. Can we agree that duels are dumb and immature? Sure. But your man has to answer for his words, Burr. With his life? We both know that's absurd, sir. Hang on, how many men died because Lee was inexperienced and ruinous? Okay, so we're doing this.
They almost saved it. They almost saved it. What do we teach our kids? What do we teach our kids? Is it do what we say and not what we do? We teach our kids things like hands are for helping and not for hurting. People who work in elementary schools say that probably 57 times a day. We no longer teach things like sticks and stones and words don't hurt me because we know that's just not true. Because words do hurt. And you know, you need more than a wingman some days. You need to know that you have an entire community of people who love you and care for you and will keep you some days from yourself and to help you be your best self. And maybe, the best thing about this song to use in a Jesus kind of way is just to sing the end, the last few lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And maybe by the time you get there, you might have settled your rightness down a little bit. And maybe by singing that little song, you might get to 10 and think, is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth it? May it be so. May it be so for us. Amen.